I would imagine insurance will cover this, yeah.
You'd hope so, wouldn't you,
yeah.
looking at some of the damage that we can see?
They certainly got a good case, haven't they?
Yeah, I certainly hope so. They'll be banging on their door if they haven't. But we're being told, actually, that according to Scotland Yard at the moment, no casualties at all, which is amazing.
Yeah.
If it had happened 3 or 4 hours earlier, then obviously people would have still perhaps been in bed or certainly in their homes, and we could have been telling people a very different story this afternoon. Were we expecting this?
Well, no, we never forecast tornadoes because they're so very, very rare. You can talk sometimes, I do sometimes talk about the odd funnel cloud should be visible, say across the countryside in a thunderstorm, but not specifically to like Kensal Rise will have a tornado. You just can't do that kind of precision.
What's been happening? Why have we got bad weather at the moment, though?
Well, the air is very unstable. We're into winter, so the upper atmosphere is cool. But still, this mild spell that we've been having, the surface air is quite warm, and that's the recipe for very unstable. Warm at the bottom, cold at the top. So that sets the scene. And then we've just had an Atlantic jet stream bring all kinds of clusters of clouds across, and these ones have just got more and more energy and decided to spawn these funnels that I talked about earlier.
Okay, bear with us, Francis, for a second, if you would. Amanda is joining us now on the phone. She's a florist in the area. Hello to you, Amanda.
Hello.
Hi, what happened?
Basically about 11 o'clock, the sky got pitch black in Kensal Rise, and I've got Christmas trees outside the shop, and they started blowing around. So I went outside the shop, and I was looking north towards Willesden, and it was the Wizard of Oz. This tornado was right in the centre of Chamberlain Road, on the corner of Whitmore Gardens, probably about 500 yards from where my shop is. And it was just sucking things up into it. There were tiles, there was bits of wood, there were trees. And it was there for about 5 or 10 seconds, and then it moved across eastwards towards Queen's Park. And then suddenly it was sort of gone as soon as it had arrived, and the area went very calm and very quiet. But Whitmore Gardens and Chamberlain Road, there's a house up there that has lost its whole side, and I'd say there's dozens of properties in the area that have sort of, tiles have come off roofs, trees have gone through roofs, As I'm looking at the moment, there's probably still about sort of 12, 13 fire engines still on the road. But luckily there's no ambulances, so we don't think anybody's been hurt.
Okay, although, Amanda, we're just hearing, as I speak to you, just hearing now from the Press Association saying that London Ambulance saying 6 people have injured. 6 people have been injured, yeah, tornado ripping through a North London street. Not really sure at this stage how badly injured they have been, or whether it's shock or whatever, but I'm sure it was incredibly shocking, wasn't it?
When it actually happened, you couldn't believe it was happening. It's only now, about an hour after it, that we're all standing around sort of drinking tea with lots of sugar in it, because we're all a bit literally a bit shaken up. When it actually happened, you couldn't believe what you were seeing. And it's just now that you're sort of reflecting on what's happened, and also seeing the buildings afterwards, that everybody is a bit shaken up.
I know our colleagues at Fox News in the United States have been tuning our way, because it is such an amazing story that this would hit a London street. Pretty small beer compared to what they're used to stateside, according to our weather presenter, Francis Wilson. But nevertheless, what's it like when you're in the middle of it, Amanda?
I was probably 500 yards away from it, and it was very windy where I was. It was really frightening, but it was more, you actually couldn't believe what you were watching, because you don't expect to see a tornado on a street in northwest London. That was it more. I think we were just almost standing there with our mouths open, not believing what was happening. And it's sort of only after the event that you think, my God, it could have been worse.
Yeah, we don't know at this stage how bad it is, Amanda, do we? But certainly, thankfully, you're safe and well. We'll let you get back to your sugary tea. Thanks very much indeed. Thanks a lot. Just want to draw your attention to that breaking news. At the bottom of your screen right now, the Russian Prosecutor General's office has said that it's opening a criminal case for the poisoning death of Alexander Litvinenko and the attempted killing of his associate, Dmitry Kovtun. So also viewing the injuries to Dmitry Kovtun as attempted murder. That, according to the Russian Prosecutor General, within the last few moments. I think we're getting that from Associated Press. Yes, we are. So as soon as we get more on that, we'll bring that to you, remembering, of course, that Alexander Litvinenko is being buried in London later on today. Sadly, especially lead-lined coffin is what the family have got to accept because his body is still very much radioactive. More on that story as we get it. And if you're just tuning our way, you're watching Lunchtime Live. These are pictures from the Sky Copter of a street in northwest London. Francis Wilson is with us. Francis, what happened?
Well, this tornado looks like it's mainly hit the rooftops, but occasionally any weak walls underneath have gone with it too, and it's sucked up the building debris into itself and scattered it all over the place. Luckily, it seems to be mainly the top floors that are affected. And then it's gone away again. The tornado that caused that is now departing the east coast of England, skipping across the countryside. There's some more heavy looking thunderstorms coming across Wales towards London, and it's the sort of thing that can spawn tornadoes. So it may not be over yet.
Them or not?
We can't predict them because they're so small in comparison to the rest of the atmosphere that you can't have that precision in the forecast. Not even in America, where they have them seasonally every year, can they predict them precisely. So they're very unusual. But the thunderstorms coming across from Wales now towards London are the type that could have funnel clouds developing and spawn tornadoes.
So does that mean we can have on a tornado watch or not? We can actually sort of think, okay, the weather is doing this, so it is more likely that we'll see a tornado.
Yeah, we don't have a tornado watch, as it were, in this country, but you can get the odd forecast that will mention that it's a day when it's possible for tornadoes, but you could never get a correct forecast that was precise enough to predict where tornadoes would be.
We said that about hurricanes, didn't we?
Well, hurricanes are so big, you can actually forecast them much easier, and tornadoes are fairly short-lived as well, whereas hurricanes are long-lived. And hurricanes, so massive, you can sort of identify their history. But tornadoes, usually they dip down and then they just scoot up again and they're gone.
How long do they last for?
Typically, when they just hit the ground or the rooftops, they would last for about the order of a minute or two, and then they suck up all the whatever is in their path, and then they go back up into the cloud. The cloud itself has got tremendous updrafts, downdrafts of amazing speed, and that's what causes the elephant trunk tornado to dip down and be pulled up again.
Okay, so you were telling us basically what it does is it dips down and then just basically picks off random houses, more or less. I mean, it can be that precise. It's just a very small area that we're talking about, because as we panned around with the camera on the Skycopter this morning, we've seen that actually it really is incredibly localised.
Yeah, the vortex of the tornado is only a street wide, usually, by the time it touches the ground. So it will only touch a few houses at a time. And it probably skipped from rooftop and then missed a few and then hit another one and missed a few and hit another one, depending on the up and down winds, the invisible up and down winds that were going on at the time. And then it translates with the cloud, say about 40 miles an hour across London, but the up and down speed is very quick. Okay. And it just picks out a rooftop and goes away.
Just let me update our viewers, Francis, on what we've got so far. We are being told originally that there weren't any injuries as a result of this tornado that hit a northwest London street at 11:02 a.m. today. Well, we are now being told that according to the ambulance service, at least 6 people have been injured after this tornado hit the suburb. 1 man taken to hospital with a head injury, 5 people treated at the scene for minor injuries and also for shock. Hardly surprising, really, is it? The tornado striking Chamberlain Road in Kensal Rise, that in northwest London. Given the sort of damage that we're looking at, I would have thought, death tolls are quite common, are they, with tornadoes?
Certainly in the States, where they have Tornado Alley and they fairly predictable season comes, they do have, I think this year in the States, for example, there was about between 10 and 15 people killed by tornadoes.
Really?
But I think it's almost unheard of for people to be killed by tornadoes in Britain. The flying debris, of course, is the problem.
And just remind me how that happens? How does it manage to suck all of that into the tornado to start with?
Well, the cloud itself develops a vortex within the cloud, well above the ground, and it's up in the black sky. but there are up and down winds within the cloud that push the vortex down towards the ground. The vortex is an area of weakness in the atmosphere, so it alleviates all the weight of air that's pushing down on that spot, and so the air at the bottom says, hey, I can escape here, I want to go up. So it rushes into that spot to rush up, sort of overshoots and spins around to find it, and then goes up. And rather like an ice skater, on the ice where when she's crouched down and has her leg well out, she spins rather slowly, but as she stands up, she can spin really fast. And that's what happens to the air that gets sucked in towards a tornado. It sort of lumbers in towards it, and then it spins really fast. And we talk about 100-mile-an-hour winds within the tornado, within a small area, the area of a house.
And is it slowed down because it is picking up all this debris, or what?
Yeah, that usually kills it. Yeah, because it sucks the contents of the top floor of houses up into it. First of all, it colours the invisible sort of white trunk that comes down and makes it black so you can see it, and it also begins to weigh down on the air. It weighs down on the vortex itself, and so gravity starts to take effect, and the whole debris just then falls to the ground around the place where it was first lifted. And the tornado becomes weak and then just fizzles out and dies into the cloud.
We had some recently, didn't we? We've probably had 4 this year. Yeah, one down by Portsmouth, one in Wales, Aberystwyth, one here, of course, in London, and another one, can't remember where. I think it was Birmingham. Was it Birmingham? I think I'm right in saying it was Birmingham. Certainly we saw the localised damage that it caused there as well. How long is this sort of dodgy weather going to be lasting for? I mean, should we be anxious if we're watching this at home? There could be another one today, because the same sort of setup is now lumbering across the Welsh Hills into the west of England. It's a line of thunderstorms called a squall line. The surface winds underneath it, you'll notice first of all, they pick up like mad, and it becomes extremely gusty. Really violent gusts, and then hailstorms. A load of hailstones will come down, and that's the sign that, well, there could be a tornado around. And at the moment there isn't, but it's the same sort of setup. So yes, there could be 1 or 2 more today. Okay. You're watching Lunchtime Live. It's 1 o'clock. If you're just tuning our way, let me tell you about the pictures that you're looking at. 6 people have been injured, one of them seriously, after a tornado ripped through a North London street. These are pictures just reaching us here at Sky Centre of the very latest when this first hit, 11:02 a.m. today. Let's listen. Okay, so this is some video that has been recorded on a resident's mobile phone. Very kindly sent it in to us. We very much appreciate that. If you also have some pictures, do let us have them here at Sky Centre. Give us a call. You can text them to us, or you can also send them via email. We will, of course, credit you accordingly. So do let us know if you do have those pictures. These are the pictures that we are looking at from our Skycopter at the moment. And this is the sort of damage that a baby tornado can do. It's about the 5th one so far this year, is what we're being told by our weather presenter, Francis Wilson. And these are more of the pictures. You can just see the sort of damage that has been caused. Many of those people out into the street, having heard what seemed like I'm not quite sure what the terminology is, Francis, when it was the sleet to start with, and then goodness, I can't remember what it's, hailstones, that's the word I was looking for. They were describing it as hailstones apparently, but actually it was the roof tiles that had been ripped up and then flooding back down onto the roofs and cars again. And you were just telling us that it's not that uncommon, really, to have tornadoes in the UK. Well, there's the funnel clouds that the tornadoes are. They do dip down across the countryside, and no one really notices. And probably at a sort of wild guess, there may be about 30 a year. So I mean, they're not that common. But to do this kind of damage in a populated area, it's very unusual. What sort of speeds are we talking about, and what would it have been like to be in the middle of it? Well, wind speeds in the tornado over 100 miles an hour, but it's the size of the street width, really, as the tornado hits. And they'll uproot trees because there's a lot of up motion as well as horizontal motion. So they twist and pull anything in the path. And then they just scatter the debris all over the place. And they're hanging onto a parent thunderstorm above, and that's moving along the street about 40 miles an hour. So you've got up motion, twist motion, and then just full-scale force of wind. The wind force goes as the square of the velocity. So if you increase the velocity just a little bit, just another 5 miles an hour, the force is the square.
so it goes up tremendously. So tornadoes, because they have these really, really strong gusts, they do generate the maximum force.
And it dips down and it does this sort of damage that we can see from our live helicopter pictures. You can see it's must have sort of caught the side of that building, I suppose, and ripped it off completely.
Yes, it's just got the top half. It doesn't come all the way to the bottom, does it? It's the top half of that wall that's gone.
Would would it have been funneled down the street? I don't know. What happens? Does it funnel down the street? And
the street would act as a kind of guide to it. It would take the path of least resistance, hence the trees and the vegetation and the cars. But because it's got to get through the roofs first to get down to the ground, it'll take those first.
Okay, and then as it sort of gets to an area that's slightly wider where two streets meet, then that's where it sort of explodes?
Yeah, and also if it becomes full of debris, it begins to weaken it.
I was going to say, what happens to it once it's picked up all of this rubbish and, you know, people's roofs and goodness knows what else, thankfully not cars, but could have been. Then what happens?
The chaos of the rubbish, it actually physically gets in the way of the upwinds, and so it begins to weaken. And once it's weakened just a little bit, it'll start to jump off the ground, and it will still be strong above the houses, but not on the house roofs. And then gradually the cloud above will just pull it back.
And people who are watching will say, you're a weatherman, why didn't you tell us this was going to happen?
Yeah, if only I could. The precision to forecast that accurately, it must if you could do that. I would take my hat off to anyone who can precisely forecast which street a tornado will hit and when. You just can't do it.
Okay, bear with us a second, Francis. We've got a quad split, as we call it in the trade, for you now. You can see top left-hand side, I think those are live pictures, so I'm right in saying that. Yeah, and then down to the bottom, those were pictures that we showed you just a little bit earlier. To the right-hand side, those are pictures that came in from James Miles, who lived in the next street to where this tornado hit. He very kindly went out and did this on his mobile phone for us. And then to the top right, those are also from one of our viewers. If you, Jayesh Boudia, I think, actually brought those pictures in for us. Jayesh, we very much appreciate that. If you've got them, if you've got some pictures you'd like to share with us and with the rest of our viewers of this mini tornado that rather startlingly hit northwest London just after 11 o'clock today, then do send them to us at news@sky.com, or you can contact us on 07738 501 501. Do let us know whether you have any recordings of what happened. Jenny Engstrom from the Willesden and Brent Times is on the line now. Hello to you, Jenny.
Hi.
Hi, what sort of damage have you seen?